Good morning, or good afternoon, or good close to noon. This is Jim the Keys Bartender coming to you from the Florida Keys. Well, yes, we still have that Russian invasion of Ukraine going on, and I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep on doing it. I apologize if you're not big fans of that, but I'm not going to let them just hang there. But we will talk about other things also. This weekend, this Thursday, is officially St. Patrick's Day, and I wanted to talk about that a bit, of how we celebrate St. Patrick's Day. You know, I have my thoughts and feelings about it, as well as you probably do. But this weekend, we've had planned for this about a month and a half, a Quinceanera. Our chef at work, his daughter, Quinceanera is a 15th birthday for a young lady. And it's mainly in South Central America. I don't know if they do it in Spain. I know they do it in Philippines, which was once a Spanish colony. So they picked up a lot of those traditions. So I guess it's something they do in Spain too. I don't know if they do it at 15 or 16 then. But it is a big deal. Let me tell you, it is a big deal, and it's very interesting. When I knew they existed, I knew how big a deal they were. They shell out as much money as people put out for weddings. So it's like our Sweet 16, our Bar Mitzvah or Bat Mitzvah. It's a coming of age thing. In the Catholic Church, I think mainly the equivalent would be confirmation, but they don't celebrate it as much. And since most of people a Latin origin, a Latin heritage, a lot of them are familiar with the Catholic. I mean, they are familiar there because they are Roman Catholic. So they have these big things. So there's a church ceremony and a reception. So the gentleman I work with, his daughter, who actually works with us too. His daughter works one night a week. Hasn't worked that often since we haven't been open on Monday. So we had to close on Saturday because they're having a Quinceanera. And our chef is the main guy. We couldn't really open. That was a decision the owners made, which I thought was wise. It was beyond a dollar and cents decision. It was a big picture thing. They saw it. They saw it and said, our chef's going to be out. He wants to invite his co-workers because it's a big life event for his oldest daughter. So they made that decision because he is our main guy, and without him we may not be open at all. So that wasn't, they viewed it as a reasonable decision to do. And I applaud them for that. And I was, normally Saturday's my day of work. I make some money doing that and stuff. But you know what? Whenever you get a weekend night off, I suggest you take it. You're never going to get that back. On the day that you die, no one ever says, I wish I had worked more. Well, maybe somebody had said that. I wish I had worked more. If their working had kept them, from, let's say your house gets flattened by a surprise blizzard, and you working more may have provided more support for your roof, and you die because your roof collapsed on you. Yeah, you might say, I wish I'd worked more and paid for new supports for my roof. But most of the time, these events like Quinceanera are priceless. So at least for me. There's nothing like going to it. When I went to the Polish wedding and it lasted 16 hours, the reception lasted 16 hours. Or maybe 15, 16 hours. I left. We started at 3 in the morning and we left, actually 15 hours. We left at 6 a.m. the next morning. That was the whole party time. Wow. Yeah. Well, Quinceanera is not much different than that. It's a lot of Not as serious drinking as you would expect in a Polish wedding, but drinking is involved. And I was looking forward to going this because I just haven't done it. I was looking forward to everything, and I'm going to talk about it briefly. But also this week is St. Patrick's Day week, and that being on Thursday, a lot of people have their parades prior to it. They do it prior. No one ever has even though it's on Thursday, they could have done the parade on Saturday. They did it the week before. So, yeah, it's juxtaposed at Quinceanera, and then you have St. Patrick's Day. So I don't do the St. Patrick's Day thing anymore, which I will talk about after we finish talking about the Quinceanera. So the Quinceanera, we're thinking about what do you dress, what do you do, what is it appropriate, a card or gift? Now, I'm a big believer in doing a card and cash or a gift card, because who knows what a young girl wants more than a young girl herself. Like for a wedding or things like that, I understand when people have a gift registry and all that stuff, but what a pain in the ass to have to pack everything that you get as a gift. If you have, it seemed to be about 180 people going to this Quinceanera. If there were gifts, you got to go and open all the gifts and this and that, which you have to open up the envelopes, but you collect all the money and stuff like that, and you put it in the bank, and you buy what you want. Nothing says I love you better than money sometimes. I know, that sounds kind of shallow. So, the day of, I go out a little early, I go to the store, and I'm looking for Quinceanera card. Now, as it turns out, there's a lot of Latins here in Florida, and I guess a lot of kids' birthdays, because there was no Quinceanera cards. I had to just go for a regular cumpleaños, which is happy birthday in Spanish. Cumpleaños is the word, if I am not correct. I mean, I wouldn't be. Don't hold me to that. So I went and got a card and all this stuff, put some money in it, and we're going. We pick up. Abby and I are going, and Abby's asking how should she dress and things like that. An interesting thing here in Florida. But then again, you notice that in the rest of the on the East Coast and I guess in the Midwest, there was this fast-moving weather system coming through. And it started out, Saturday was going to be the hottest day. And right around 3 o'clock, it was about 90 degrees and humid in Homestead. Same thing down here in the Keys. And right, this Quinceanera, the party for it was starting at 4 o'clock. And this cold front was moving in. And that means high winds, a little intermittent showers. And we're paying attention as we're driving north, and it was in the reception was in Homestead, Florida, which is approximately 20 miles from the northernmost reaches of Key Largo, but for us it was about 30 miles from where we are in Key Largo. So we're driving up there, and we see the line of clouds, and you can see the temperature drop right down to 80 degrees, a little below 75. And then when we left at 8 o'clock, we stayed at 8:30. We started at 4, we left at 8:30. It was 70. And we arrived home, it was 65. So it was about a 25-degree temperature change. And I know on the East Coast people had that. I know your 25 degrees went from 50 degrees down to 25 with a blizzard coming in. So that was, it was nice. We get to dress nice, and then when we're coming out, it's not sweltering. So we arrive up there. We don't know exactly, a party's a party, but it's so amazing that there are basic things you do as a guest to a party. One is try to dress appropriately for it. Don't, dress too. You don't want to overdress the host, or underdress, because underdressing is a sign of disrespect. Overdressing would be kind of a sign of a disrespect, but you just don't want to overshadow them. Arrive with a tuxedo. I did notice, though, because there were a lot of Mexicans, because Luis is Mexican, and around here, just like in Mexico, or the part of Mexico they come from, the guys wear Western attire. The big belt buckles, the nice pair of slacks, a nice shirt, and the cowboy hats. And you know what? I have an affinity for cowboy hats, but I never really liked the hat that sat on top of my head. Meaning, all your hats, yes, I realize all the top hats sit on top of your head. But like a baseball cap doesn't really add any height to you. You just put it on, and the top of the cap corresponds with the top of your head. Now, with a cowboy hat, that's anywhere from like 5 to 7 inches of more, and that's almost like 7 feet for me if you get to the higher end of it. And I hate the idea of having to knock things over or bump things with my head, and I'm not super tall. Imagine someone in their these tall guys with cowboy hats. I really never understood that stuff, and it gets kind of hot, and I do have kind of big ears. I never really seemed to blend in with the cowboy hat. But I did do one of those vintage photos years ago, 30-something years ago, with some friends, black and white. And I'll tell you, when a guy's wearing a cowboy hat and it's in a black and white photo with other people dressed like cowboys, or what would you call those girls? One of those saloon girls dressed up like saloon girls, which thought was always kind of insulted. The girls would dress like saloon girls are pretty much like prostitutes in the old West. Most of the time, the ones that said, and they used to give you those off the shoulder things, unless they're dressed like cowgirls. I don't know where I'm going from this direction. I do apologize, because we are talking about Quinceanera. So we show up, and they're all up front, and we get there. I always have this idea. This is when you're invited to a party. If it says it starts at 4 or 5 or whatever time, I'm thinking 10 to 15 minutes after the start time. 10 to 15 minutes after the time they say start. Not on the dot, not too late. So, if I get there 5 after 4, I'd still wait. Take your time and get in there quarter after. That's just the way, because the real late thing, I saw people arriving at 6:30, 6:45, even though it did go to 12 o'clock. You missed all the ceremonial stuff. And they do. So we arrive and everyone's dressed. It's almost like the important people to it, the parents and the aunts and uncles and the young ladies, Quinceanera. And she has her court. I guess they call it a court. They have women and young men. And they have all these ceremonial dances. And they have all these ceremonial toasts. And the dances with the father, the dancing with the mother, the dancing with the boyfriend, the dancing with the whole court. And then they have their own traditional songs and the Mexican music. And it was so interesting with Abby, because first they started out with a mariachi band. And mariachi gets a bad rap when you see it, but it is so cool when you see a really good mariachi band. I never knew that they were co-ed now. So there was one of the lead singer was a woman, and there was a violin player who was a woman. And the 3 to 4 other guys in it obviously were men. But they were just wonderful. And they go and do a serenade. They serenade for about 20, 30 minutes, serenade the guest of honor, the Quinceanerian, Quinceaneriala, whatever the Quinceanerios. I'm getting buried here. I got to move on. But yes, they did that, and then they sit down. They do a couple dances. We eat, and then the DJ plays, and they play a bunch of traditional songs and do those dances again. Those formal dances, some really good Mexican dances and things like that, which I didn't get up to do, but I was ready to, if the wife was ready to. I'm not. It's not about me, and it's not about the girl. And I was torn because I wanted to say, hey, listen, here's one of your coworkers trying their best to fit in. And then they had a band, a regular band, not the separate from the mariachi, with the accordion, the big tuba, boom, boom. Man, are they loud? But they were good. They were a good band, excellent band. And you know what's funny? They had an open bar. When I say it's funny, anytime I used to remark in from my neck of the woods, Pennsylvania, southeastern Pennsylvania, they'd have a christening or a baptism, or christening is a baptism, or communion party, or things like that. They always had open bar. Even for the Quinceanera, there had to be like 40 kids there, 40 people under, easy, 40 kids under 18. Friends of the guest of honor. So I guess that happens all over. It's not necessarily about, it's their day. It's her day, but, you're going to have to get some booze for the rest of the people. And they had a really nice bar set up there, which I couldn't take advantage of. I got a couple cans of club soda and some other drinks for the table, but that brought back memories. It was the first time, one of the few times that I went to a banquet event down here, a more formal banquet event with an open bar. And I know about banquet bartender, but I'm going to talk a little about that after. So they had the dancing and this and that, and we're sitting at the table, and I took a picture. I'll post a picture on my Keys Bartender Facebook page. I hope it doesn't piss anybody off, because I say we were at the Gringo table, exclusively Gringo table, because we're friends from work. There were, and I mean, when I say Gringo, I mean that with good intentions. Gringos is kind of a disparaging remark, but listen, people in the United States have said many disparaging remarks about people of other cultures, so calling someone a Gringo is not something too far out of line. So we're sitting there. Obviously, no one's getting up to dance and things like that, but they are drinking. It's the one thing the Gringos do have in common. And you're admiring how they dance, how well they dance together. But it was a very, very good time, and we ended up staying until a little after 8. Now, what I did notice, and it brought back memories up for me. I was in catering management for years. I mean, as a worker, as a manager, as a bartender, as a maitre d'. I don't critique, I just observe. And a lot of times with banquet bartending, people usually just work 1, maybe 2 shifts a weekend, so they don't get that critical mass of experience, especially if they're not working at the same place. And banquet bartending, you don't really get the most, let's say, experienced people sometimes bartending. They try their best. There's just a smoothness that goes when you have a bar and someone comes up and you say, what are you having to drink? What are you having to drink? Stuff like that. And if people, normally a lot of people, people say, I'll have a wine, I'll have a wine, I'll have a wine. So you pour 3 wines, or 3 white wines or something like that. Or 3 red, depending on what they want. Oh, 3 beers, Modelo. A lot of Modelo. They had Bud Light and stuff like that. They had a top shelf liquor. So, but I didn't have a beef with it because I'm just getting my soda. But I'm like, I've always had this thing. This is me. And this is only me describing. I'm not saying I'm the only one that feels this way, but this is only my feeling. Is I just like to get the drink served. And you're out of there. And sometimes I go, oh, well, going slow, you're hurting yourself because there's more people around. And the more people you get coming up to the bar, say, hey, there's no one at the bar. And you get more people coming up and you get more tips. And most of the people were in restaurant business. They were making a ton of money at this bartending thing. I mean, you had people giving 20s and 10s and 5s and 1s. And they just had this drawer where they would keep on taking a tip jar every time it got filled up and dumping in there. I've worked parties where you could put up a tip jar and you might get like $5, $6. Yes, some people, culturally, some people don't have the cultural experience or of tipping. But obviously in Quinceanera, they tip. I mean, that job there for the bartenders, there were like 4 people behind a bar. There was only one person really working. But they made enough for all of them to do really well. But I would have just kicked it up a notch. And, normally those bars get really backed up and stuff like that, especially 150, 100, 170 people. They didn't, they had tequila shots and beer. That was it. Even though they had all this liquor, they had Jamesons and stuff like that. Just culturally, people behave differently at different parties. But it was really juxtaposed. They had a bottle of Jamesons there, which, at the Quinceanera, I didn't think Jamesons would be a big thing, right? I think they got the Jamesons because maybe some of the Mexican people liked it. I don't know. Let's get on to the St. Patrick's Day. So St. Patrick's Day weekend. It's coming up on Thursday, St. Patrick's Day weekend. And what happens on St. Patrick's Day? People just go out and they don't have anything other to do. Wear green. Wear things that say, kiss me, I'm Irish. Of Irish heritage. Irish girl. Whatever. It's Irish guy. And drink Jamesons and Guinness. And beer, maybe some beer with green dye in it. Nothing to do with, and post pictures of leprechauns, which leprechauns are more of a pagan symbol, kind of like a pagan fairy. When I say fairy, I'm not talking about lifestyle. I'm talking about one of these fictional creatures. And so there's no consideration on who St. Patrick was, anything cultural about Ireland, except maybe you might get a couple little girls with awkward shoes on and ill-fitting dresses do a dance where they move their legs tremendously, kind of like they're stomping on something without moving their arms. And that's St. Patrick's Day. And they made some ham and cabbage. And it's something. Did I hate cabbage when I was growing up? But now, for some reason, I like it. I don't know. Corned beef and cabbage. That's a big thing. I mean, who goes out? Like Thursday, they're going to have corned beef and cabbage. I think Thursday, yes, we'll have corned beef and cabbage. And for what god-awful kind of special food to have that people go out of their way to get. It's amazing. Amazing. And juxtaposed to that, I guess it's the same thing if you think about St. Patrick's Day, how they separate. It's Cinco de Mayo. People say, well, what's St. Patrick? Well, St. Patrick is the patron saint of Ireland. And supposedly he brought the Catholic Church or Christianity to Ireland. He was I think he was a kidnapped, if I do my research, it goes back, a kidnapped Roman citizen from the British Isles, from mainland Britain, brought to Ireland by the pagan Irish, the Celts at the time. And he hung out there and converted a lot of them. They throw in a little thing about maybe him driving on all the snakes, but there were really no snakes there in the beginning. I guess that was a good thing. He drove up. The reason there's no snakes in Ireland, because St. Patrick drove them all out. Well, why didn't they just say, why didn't they make it like elephants, where they got rid of all the elephants and crocodiles in Ireland? Because it would make St. Patrick seem more badass. But driving all the snakes out, I mean, you could have one of those things you buy at the special section of the drugstore where they sell it, as seen on TV, the high-pitched sonar that drives all the snakes out. It's not a thing, the snake's going into the ocean. That's his miracle. That's a very strange superpower. Well, what's your superpower? My superpower is that snakes don't like me, which might be good for people that don't like snakes. Might be exciting. Might be exciting. So we had that week in Quinceanera. Now we got to get ready for St. Patrick's Day. I don't like the Irish car bomb drink or pickleback. They take Jameson, an expensive Irish whiskey, if you consider, well, not expensive Irish whiskey, but say an Irish whiskey that's much more expensive than well liquor. At least here it runs anywhere from $8, $9, $10 a shot. And the pickleback is just pickle juice. So people drink the Jamesons and they shoot the pickle juice. People say, oh, I like Jamesons. I want a Jameson pickleback. I said, if you're drinking pickle juice after you drink a shot of Jamesons, pretty much you're saying you don't like Jamesons. You like Jamesons and pickle juice. And pickle juice is a very strong tasting thing. So if you have to throw something strong tasting, just like tequila, you have to suck on lime and salt after you shoot tequila. You don't really like tequila. You like tequila with lime and salt. I mean, people say, oh, you like it, but you have to have those other things. Well, if you like it itself, you don't need to actually, like Oreo cookies. I like Oreos and milk, but if you said, well, we don't have milk, I would say I'll still take the Oreo. But a lot of people won't drink the Jamesons if they don't get the pickle juice. And the car-bound drink. Like you're taking the cultural appropriation of the worst thing in the Irish culture, the Troubles, which have been over for a while, and you're recreating it, saying take the worst aspect and call it an Irish car bomb. You get Guinness, and you drop oh hell, I don't even concentrate on it. It's either Jameson's and Bailey's. You drop into your Guinness, and supposedly that's a car bomb. It sounds like something to make you. It sounds like you're bombing your stomach, actually, or you're bombing your rectum, because that's really going to have a bad effect to it. Okay, but you had my feelings known about those drinks, and you know what? If you want to culturally celebrate some party, it'd be nice to learn a little about the culture, and not just parrot the stupid stuff. The shamrocks. The shamrock was used by St. Patrick, actually. I know that one. You talk about 4-leaf clovers being good luck and all that stuff, because most clovers are 3. Well, he took the shamrock, supposedly, and he explained the Trinity using a shamrock, which probably was one of the better explanations for it. He says, look, there's 3 leaves to a shamrock, but it's one shamrock. So that's the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. One entity, one God, but it has 3 leaves coming off. Oh, well, isn't that kind of like a multi-headed beast? No, don't want to piss you off, but there, I said it. This past week, I did mention there was some interesting gentleman that came in and he was drinking. He had his little backpack, and every time he wanted a cigarette, he'd unpack his backpack on the bar, take out all his cigarettes, and he'd take one cigarette out and a lighter and put everything back in his backpack, he was drinking Guinness, take his drink, and then go and smoke a cigarette and come back in. And he drank 3 of them in about 2 hours. And he was the last person to leave. He was making a couple people uncomfortable. Not me, because I'm used to interesting people. I like to say interesting, not crazy. I hate saying crazy, but I say it nonetheless because it's an easy way to describe something. So I'm thinking, maybe I was a little hard on the guy. Maybe I shouldn't have done this. And don't you know, what's one of the things I do? Don't have to answer this, but one of the things I do regularly is check our Monroe County Sheriff's Office police blotter. And what they do is they show mugshots of people and the crimes they got arrested for. And don't you know, I always see people that I know, but rarely do I see people after I've first been acquainted with them, and then I see them. I saw this guy the same day. He got arrested about 2 hours later at another location, disturbing the peace. And he was very quiet. He may have been unique. He was using the Wi-Fi, and he had his little earpieces in, and he was watching something on his cell phone. And that's all he was doing. Not interacting with anybody, just hanging out. He would have stayed there till 12 if we wanted to let him hang there with all of us waiting for him to finish the drink. So he ended up getting arrested. And then I felt kind of bad. Saw the guy's picture and looking at him, he said, obviously, he had some other issues other than just watching his cell phone and listen to he may have went to another bar and refused to leave. I don't know, but that didn't make me feel good. I hate to see a fulfilling forecast like that. Going saying, this guy's kind of nutty, and then he gets arrested for doing something nutty. And that's not the first time here. I had a couple of years back, I had a guy and get real pissed off after he ordered Long Island iced tea. I gave him 1. I don't know if I gave him 2. The second one I didn't give him because he was getting loud and rude. And he had a bike with a small trailer hooked up to it. When I say bike, I mean bicycle, with one of those trailers that you can hook up to a bicycle. And he was one of those people with questionable residence, not residency status, but residence, meaning he could have been homeless or one of those guys. He ended up, after I had my interaction with him, he goes to another place and gets arrested. It gives me no joy to see these fulfilling prophecies. I do not want to see people get arrested. But I do notice that there are people, mentally ill people that are homeless. They're hanging out. And I hate having to enforce that because it is a business. It is a business, and we can't just become a place where people congregate and drive away a regular business, because that would be doing a disservice to people that own the business and the people I work with. And after a certain amount of time, when someone's doing something really weird, I say, listen, you got to stop doing that. Perhaps maybe you should be changing your clothes a little. You don't smell too good. We do have a hose outside. I don't mean to be funny or sarcastic with that, meaning there is places around here with water, free running water. Maybe you should throw some water on yourself and stuff. I don't like throwing someone, and I haven't, with someone being filthy. I have done it with people not wearing a shirt or shoes. And there are people down here that aren't homeless. There was a couple guys I know, at least 2 or 3, who they didn't like wearing shoes. Yeah, they didn't like wearing shoes. And they would come in and say, people say, well, no, I'm not worried about getting cut feet. And I'd say, well, no, people they don't want your bare feet on the floor. They don't want your bare feet. You got to put you got to put shoes on. Now, a couple of them, you got to tell them with the shirt when they're not wearing a shirt. And it's mainly guys. Because so often girls have females taking their tops off. But guys, when they're coming with their shirt off, and I say, listen, here's the rule of thumb. If there's no walls and a tiki roof, roof, and there's no walls and there's no windows and stuff like that, down here in the Keys, probably don't have to wear a shirt. Probably don't. If you're up at Ocean Reef, you got to wear a collared shirt. You're not walking around with your shirt off. But when you're in a restaurant that has walls and a roof, you need a shirt. Yeah, there you go. There you go. People say, well, Jim, you don't say that when a girl comes in with a bikini top. I said, well, she's wearing a bikini top. If a guy was wearing a bikini top, I let him wear the bikini top. Now, no double standards here. No double standards. Say, sir, you got to put a shirt on. Just one of those things. Even though it's not a big deal, it's one of the things we're going to do. We're going to do right here. We're going to establish this rule. You got to wear the shoes and the shirt. Now, if you want to be a jailhouse lawyer and say, well, you just said shoes and shirts. You didn't say anything about pants. You know what? If you can't make the inference or the next logical conclusion that you need pants too, you don't need a further explanation. Get out of there. Get out, without the pants. I haven't had to tell someone about that yet. I imagine, though, it happens at least a couple times in the Keys and other places. I mean, there isn't much of, I don't think unless, if you're right next, that's got to be interesting. If you're right next to a nudist colony and there's no delineated, I imagine if there's no delineated thing to mark that, well, now you're off property at the nudist colony. So if you go into the convenience store, or what would be a bad place to go naked? A glass figurine store. That would be a horror place to go naked. People say, Jim, why not naked? You don't have the extra clothes. You're not going to knock things out. But if you fall down in a glass figurine store, you have all sorts of places to get hurt then. You need the extra clothes when you go there. Or the candle store. What else? Maybe a machinist shop. You don't want to go into that naked. There's all sorts of places you shouldn't go into naked. I mean, it's a couple places you can go into naked, but the list is a lot. It's for safety reasons and for hygiene. Actually, you're sitting on furniture, Unless it's self-washing furniture, if it's outside, if on a boat. I don't think I have to think about that too much longer. I'm going to wrap it up right now. I do post on the Ukraine. I'm not going to give it up as long as they're still fighting and there's something to do for them. I want to do it. I know these people say, hey, listen, if you don't like it, go over and fight for them. And there's a lot of people volunteering to do that. And who knows? I don't know what I would do if I didn't have a family or anything like that, but I certainly hope that I would be, if I was single and didn't have any particular responsibility, that I would go over there and help, because there is an international brigade made up of foreigners that are fighting in the Ukraine. And they're fighting a lot harder, it seems, than the Russian conscripts. And evidenced by the Russians using a lot more missiles and artillery and tanks and their planes. They're not, their ground assault. They're doing fixed position, and they're trying to move their ground troops in. But I don't think the Russians are going to get. I think they burn out through a lot of their first-rate equipment and their first-rate troops. They're going they're burning through those, and now evidenced by a request to the Chinese from the Russians for support in their assault on Ukraine, which is kind of like, I don't know, let's say some guy, and this is a hard metaphor to really make, but imagine that you have a friend and you're not aware that your friend was abusive towards his wife until the reports come out in the open that he's being abusive to his wife. And it turns out the wife's fighting back. And your friend would have to admit and say, listen, I'm not really doing well trying to dominate my wife. Could you help me out? And the rest of your friends find out that your friend asked you that. They look at you and say, you're not going to help him out, are you? Because what he's doing is wrong. And the person said, no, he didn't even ask me. And that's where the position the Chinese are in right now. They want to support Putin, the other authoritarian in the world, the big world, important authoritarian. You got Ping, whatever, Xi, President Xi of China supporting President Putin of Russia. But he can't do it openly, because if they do it openly, they're going to get sanctions. The Chinese get sanctions. And Chinese are dependent on trade. To have trade. They probably thought, hey, maybe we can slip some of our older equipment. This is the way it looks like what they kind of do. They're not going to send top flight Chinese equipment, their hypersonic missiles or whatever, over to Russia. And as it turns out, it looks like Russia didn't update their armaments, so they're probably running low on their first-rate material. And they're running out of food, running out of morale. So hopefully this time next week, we'll start seeing some more negotiations and perhaps a cessation to the hostilities. What I do hope is that Putin is not rewarded for this unprovoked aggression. And I'm tired of seeing my fellow citizens and people I'm on friendly terms with parroting Russian propaganda on Facebook. And people say, why are you even involved in this? This is not your thing. Why not? Why not? You just stand by if someone decides to say, listen, I'm going to do this. And you just stay out of this way. This is my problem. Well, if someone is in the wrong, you're right just to support the offended party. And that's what the rest of the world is doing right now. And they'll see in the end, hopefully I won't have to do this any longer. It's really not helping my numbers right now. It'd be really hard to kind of do a show outside while I'm doing this. So, if you really need to support, if you feel the same way I do, please find one. There's tons of groups out there. Just double check before you donate that it is an official group. It's not some bogus bullshit one. There's a lot of communities, churches that are participating. If you're in a big city, there's some of the big cities have a Ukrainian communities you can donate directly to, and they send care packages over there. So, sending our best to the Ukrainians. Hope they persevere. This is Jim the Keys Bartender. I will talk to you, I guess. Well, we may not be doing a show tomorrow because I got to go up to Miami. No, probably do one afterwards. I'll talk to you later. Have a great day.